Zlata's book. You ask what kind of person, and she just rolls her eyes and smiles in silence. So Svetka and I decided that we must learn everything from her. Will you help us get her to open up? Marina nodded. Of course, I'm curious to know who Zlata's boyfriend is. And look, there she is now. Zlata glided into the cafe, her long golden hair cascading down her shoulders as she warmly smiled at her friends. Hello, my beauties, she greeted them. How are you all? We've been waiting for you, Sveta said. After all, you have the most exciting news among us. Zlata flashed an enigmatic smile and waved her hand. Nothing out of the ordinary is happening in my life, she replied. I simply met someone here. Just acquainted, Yana taunted. Zlat, that's not fair. We're friends, we always share everything with each other. And you just keep rolling your eyes and smiling. Well, honestly, Marina chimed in, supporting her friend. Either don't talk about him at all or spill the details. Zlata nodded. Yes, of course I will, she responded. To be honest, I can't wait myself. It's just, I never thought something like this would happen to me. Girls, it's like a scene out of a love story. We even had a romantic encounter. I tripped on the stairs and twisted my ankle, and there he was. He helped me to a nearby bench. We sat there for a while, talking about all sorts of things. And then, when I tried to stand up, I realized I couldn't walk without assistance. Fortunately, it wasn't far from home. Jean helped me walk back. His name is Jean? Sveta wondered. What kind of name is that? Is he French? Zlata nodded. You know, my grandmother was French, she explained. She had a deep love for Russian literature and adored Russian ballet. She used to visit Moscow regularly, and then she fell in love with a Russian man and decided to stay. Wow, Marina exclaimed, stretching out. So does your Jean actually look like a Frenchman? Zlata shrugged her shoulders. How would I know what the French look like? She replied. But I can tell you for sure that Jean is handsome. At first, I never thought I would be attracted to someone like him. He's just too good-looking. Okay, Jana waved her hand. He walked you home, and what happened next? He asked for my phone number, Zlata revealed. The next day, he called and asked if I needed anything. He brought me groceries and sat with me, just talking. And then he came by again. Eventually, he asked me out on a date. Of course, I couldn't refuse. I couldn't believe my luck. So we've been dating for 2 months now. So, what's the catch? Svetlana interjected. He can't be so perfect, attentive, caring, and handsome all at once. Zlata looked puzzled. Catch? What do you mean? Well, he can't be flawless, Svetlana elaborated. There must be something we don't know yet. Zlata smiled mysteriously. Well, time will tell, she said. But for now, everything seems wonderful. Why can't he? Zlata was surprised. Of course he can be perfect. Perhaps he has a bad job? Yana asked. Or maybe he doesn't work at all? Or does he still live with his parents? Oh, you're so cynical. Zlata waved her hand. I used to be like that too. But day after day, Jean proves to me that it's possible. That a man can be perfect. He excels in his job as a realtor and is very successful. He earns a good amount of money, drives an expensive car, and is always impeccably dressed. And he has free time. You know how wonderful that is. He can come to my workplace just to have lunch with me. Oh, and he lives on his own. He also has a really close relationship with his mom. They have lunch together once a week, but that's just because he's a loving son. Besides, his mom lives alone and gets lonely. What do you think, girls? Jana turned to her friends. What's your verdict? Zlatka is hopelessly in love, and that's why she's wearing those. Sveta spread her hands, indicating rose-tinted glasses. I agree with Svetika, Marina nodded. You're just jealous, Zlata retorted. You'll see that he's the best. Maybe you can introduce us, Marina asked. In the near future, Zlata agreed. Zlata returned home after meeting with her friends and dialed her boyfriend's number. Hi, Hi, honey, how was your night out? He asked. It was great. I haven't seen the girls in a long time, and we had a fantastic conversation, she replied. So, you didn't miss me at all? He asked. Of course I did, she said. Did you miss me? I missed you too. Zlatka, maybe I can come by tomorrow morning. I have a viewing at 10 o'clock, but I'll have time to drop you off at work, he suggested. I agree, said Zlata. I'll be glad to see you in the morning. All right, it's a deal, Jean agreed. I look forward to seeing you in the morning. Satisfied, Zlata placed the phone on the table and danced around the room. She didn't want her friends to think she was foolish. She was confident in her judgment of character, and she had chosen the best guy for herself. The next morning, Jean picked up Zlata as promised. She got into his car, and he greeted her with a broad smile, giving her a kiss. I missed you so much yesterday and last night, he confessed. Zlata, I think it's time we live together. I don't have the strength anymore. I want to spend evenings and nights with you. But you stay at my place sometimes, Zlata replied, and I've never been to your place. It's not because I haven't invited you, the man explained. You always refuse. But I understand that you feel more comfortable at home. You cook, and you know where everything is. However, I would like you to see where I live. All right, Zlata nodded. How about today? I'll finish work, and then we can go to my place to gather everything we need for tomorrow. Afterward, we can visit your apartment. Sounds perfect, Jean said happily. I'll pick you up from work, and we'll make it happen. I agree, Zlata said, her face beaming with joy, and then she scolded herself. Her friends had managed to sow doubt in her mind, causing her to test and doubt her man. It was all because of their influence. Jean, I really want to be with you, Zlata confessed, feeling guilty about her earlier doubts. In the evening, as Zlata stepped out of the office, she immediately noticed Jean's car. Her beloved was already waiting for her. Oh, Zlatka, her colleague remarked. Watch him closely. Handsome men are usually so fickle. They constantly cheat. Zlata let out a sigh. I'll keep that in mind, she replied incredulously. Why do you keep scaring me? He's perfectly fine. Jean got out of the car and approached her, holding a bouquet of flowers. I want today to be a special day for us, he said, hugging Zlata. Shall we go? Zlata accepted the flowers with a smile and nodded. Let's go, she answered. They drove to Zlata's apartment, where she gathered her makeup and clothes for the next day. Then the couple headed to Jin's place. He parked the car near a modern high-rise building. Let's go, he said, opening the door for her. They ascended to the 8th floor, and Jean opened the door to his apartment. As Zlata stepped inside, she couldn't help but gasp in amazement. The entrance hallway was spacious, adorned with a mirrored wall. The stunning chandelier hanging above caught her eye. It was the most beautiful one she had ever seen. Do you live here? Zlata murmured in awe. It's such a fancy house. Jean shrugged his shoulders, looking slightly embarrassed. Not exactly, he replied. I'm still getting used to it. I just finished renovating the place. I saved up for a long time to have this place. I may be making good money now, but I still feel a bit out of place here. But when you're here, I'll be happy if you like it. Come on, let me show you around. Let's go, Zlata agreed, her curiosity piqued. Jean suggested they start with the rooms, and Zlata followed him slowly. The apartment exuded luxury, and Zlata felt like she was walking on air. Jean intentionally saved the bedroom for last. As they entered, Zlata's eyes widened at the sight before her. The room was adorned in pristine white, with a massive bed in the center, and there she noticed the spacious dressing room. You have such exquisite taste, Zlata exclaimed. I wish I had agreed to come to your place sooner. I could have been living here. Zlata, that's not the only thing I wanted to discuss with you, Jean said earnestly. I think it's time we introduced each other to our parents. I take our relationship very seriously. I love you, and I would like my loved ones to know about you. Zlata let out an excited sigh. That's somewhat unexpected, she admitted. But I think we can make it happen. I've already told my parents about you. Yes? Jean asked with a smile. Have you told your parents about me yet? That's nice. When can I meet them? Zlata sighed softly. Unfortunately, it will be a couple of months before that can happen. I mentioned earlier that they are away for 3 months, visiting relatives. Maybe it's for the best, Jean said, a tinge of sadness in his voice. Why? Zlata asked, surprised by his response. Jean let out a heavy sigh. You see, he began, my mother is a bit of a complex person. She raised me on her own, and she can be overprotective. Don't get me wrong, I don't let her control me too much. But sometimes she can be intrusive or overly assertive. It's hard to explain. I think you just need to meet her and see for yourself. However, please be prepared that she might not warm up to you right away. Zlata listened attentively, understanding the potential challenges ahead. I appreciate your honesty, she replied. I'll keep that in mind and approach the situation with an open mind and heart. Let's hope that with time, she will come to see the connection. Not the first time, Zlata clarified. You make it sound like I have no chance of being liked by her at all. No, Zlata, it's not like that, Jean reassured her. It's just that initially, my mother tends to be skeptical of my girlfriends. It's not that I introduce her to many girls, but it takes her time to warm up to them. But I have no doubt that once she gets to know you better, she'll come around. I promise you, I'll be fully supportive, and the meeting will go well. Let's plan to take her out to dinner. There's a favorite cafe of hers near our house. We can arrange the first meeting there. Okay, agreed Zlata. What's your mother's name? Tasia Semyonovna, Jean replied. You'll see, you'll become great friends. Shall we set the appointment for tomorrow? Does that work for you? Why are you in such a hurry? Zlata asked curiously. I just want us to start living together as soon as possible, Jean explained. And I know my mother very well. If you move in with me before she has a chance to meet you, she will hold on to it for years. So I suggest we go through all the proper formalities. Zlata nodded in understanding. Whatever you say, she replied. The next day, Jean picked her up from work. They went to her place for her to change clothes, and then they headed to the cafe for their meeting with Jean's mother. You've chosen a nice dress, Jean approved. Simple and modest. Mama will like it. I'm glad, Zlata nodded. To be honest, I'm very nervous. Everything will go well, the man assured her. You're a really clever girl. They were the first to arrive at the cafe. Jean selected a table and pulled out a chair for his companion. Just as Zlata settled down, Jean exclaimed, Here comes Mama. Zlata carefully observed the approaching woman. Tasia Semyonovna immediately caught her attention. She had a straight posture and an elegant stride. The woman was dressed in a stylish pantsuit, and her fingers were adorned with large rings. Hello, my son, she warmly greeted Jean, giving him a hug. Finally, you remember your mother. Mom, don't be like that, Jean replied. I never forget about you. Let me introduce my girlfriend, Zlata. Nice to meet you, Zlata. Tasia Semyonovna extended her hand. However, Zlata couldn't shake off the feeling that this introduction was far from pleasant. Jean's mother's piercing gaze made her want to hide under the table or, better yet, run away from the cafe. What do you do for a living? Tasia Semyonovna asked as soon as they sat down at the table. Mom, what kind of interrogation is this? Jean reproached her. I didn't bring Zlata here for you to scare her. Can we have a normal conversation? Son, I want to understand what your girlfriend is all about. What interests her in life, what she's like, she explained, raising her hands in surrender. I'm not very good at beating around the bush. I believe in direct questions. It's fair to everyone involved in the conversation. Zlata took a deep breath. Maybe there was nothing wrong with Jin's mother. Perhaps she simply communicated assertively with everyone. I work in the banking industry, she replied. I approve and disperse loans. It may not be the most impressive job, but it's reliable. I agree, Tasia Semyonovna nodded. It's a good profession. It's not like being a florist. Is that the occupation of your last fling? She looked at her son. Mother, please stop, Jean demanded firmly. It's inappropriate to compare girls. Tanya and I broke up a long time ago. Let's forget about it. I'm sure it's extremely unpleasant for Zlata to hear such comments. If someone asked Zlata to describe her first lunch with Jean's mother, she would call it strange. She still hadn't figured out how she should relate to Tasia Semyonovna. Most importantly, she couldn't understand the woman's attitude towards her. In an instant, she would be smiling and almost amiable, but 5 minutes later, she would bombard Zlata with questions and make snide comments in response to her every word. One thing Zlata was sure of was that she was relieved when the dinner finally came to an end. They had prearranged with Jean that he would see his mother off first and then come to Zlata's house to discuss the dinner. Zlata went home and waited for Jean for quite a long time. He didn't show up until 2 hours later. Did something happen? She asked. Jean let out a sigh and shrugged his shoulders. Just tired. Sometimes my mom really gets on my nerves, he admitted. She didn't like me at all, Zlata sighed dejectedly. It's a shame. I was hoping. No, Zlata, Jean reassured her, pulling her into a hug. You're completely wrong. My mom actually liked you. I'm surprised, to be honest. Overall, she thinks you're very driven, intelligent, and interesting. I have a feeling that there's going to be some kind of but. Mother doesn't have confidence in you as a good hostess. Well, you know, Soviet women are used to doing everything themselves. In her opinion, you should know everything and be able to do everything around the house, Jean explained. But that's no problem at all. She'll eventually realize she was wrong. You're a super hostess, and the way you cook, it's delicious. Zlata raised an eyebrow, sensing there was more to the story. You know what? Jean suddenly became enthusiastic. Let's have her over for dinner, and then we wouldn't have to do, he hesitated. Does your mom have a plan? Zlata asked. What does she want? No, Zlata, Jean brushed off the question. I'm not even going to tell you. It's nonsense. Please tell me, she insisted. Jean sighed and finally relented, shrugging his shoulders. I have a feeling that there's going to be some kind of but. Mother doesn't have confidence in you as a good hostess. Well, you know, Soviet women are used to doing everything themselves. In her opinion, you should know everything and be able to do everything around the house, Jean explained. But that's no problem at all. She'll eventually realize she was wrong. You're a super hostess, and the way you cook, it's delicious. Zlata raised an eyebrow, sensing there was more to the story. You know what? Jean suddenly became enthusiastic. Let's have her over for dinner, and then we wouldn't have to do, he hesitated. Does your mom have a plan? Zlata asked. What does she want? No, Zlata, Jean brushed off the question. I'm not even going to tell you. It's nonsense. Please tell me, she insisted. Jean sighed and finally relented, shrugging his shoulders. I warned you, he reminded her. Anyway, Mom said she liked you. Sorry, but her exact words were much more than those two proles. Anyway, as I mentioned, she wants to see what kind of hostess you are. But not just during dinner, she wants to live with you. See how you make breakfast, dinner, how you clean your apartment, how you do the laundry, wash the windows. And how does she plan to check all this? Zlata asked, baffled. Jean grinned mischievously. I told you my mother has quite the imagination. She thinks we should have a trial period where she stays with us for a couple of weeks, he revealed. Zlata's eyes widened in surprise. What? She exclaimed, looking at her boyfriend in disbelief. Jean smiled and shrugged. Zlata, I warned you. I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do about it. You could say I come with a unique family package. It's me and my not quite conventional mom. Anyway, just try to ignore it. Although I'm afraid we might have to take her out for a couple of dinners as a compromise, he suggested. Wait, Zlata interrupted him. What happens if we don't fulfill her curiosity? Nothing will happen, Jean dismissed her concerns. She'll just be a little annoying. Jean, Zlata looked at him seriously. Please, don't hide anything from me. Jean sighed, realizing he couldn't keep anything from her. The first girl I introduced to my mother was named Kajia. I thought she was perfect. Kajia came from a good family. Her mother was a music teacher, and her father was a professor at the conservatory. Kajia herself played the violin and worked as a math teacher. I was convinced that my mother would like her, Jean explained. And what happened? Zlata inquired. The moment my mother met Kajia, she decided she couldn't be that perfect. She started pestering her relentlessly. At the time, I didn't fully understand the extent of what my mother was capable of, so I didn't give it much thought. Well, my mother didn't like Kajia, and that was okay. I thought they would eventually become friends. But then my mother went to great lengths to find Kajia's school. She pretended that her granddaughter needed a math tutor and contacted the parents of Kajia's students. She specifically targeted parents who had a conflict with Kajia. Jean shook his head, recalling the ordeal. It turned into a nightmare. They provoked Kajia into a scandal at the school, and my mother ensured that the vice principal witnessed it. Kajia, of course, was not entirely blameless either. She shouldn't have yelled at the parents, but we're all human. That's understandable. What happened next? Zlata asked, concerned. Kajia was on the verge of being fired. I had to intervene. I convinced my mother to speak with the school's principal, and in the end, the scandal was hushed up. However, that incident marked the end of my relationship with Kajia as well, Jean recounted, his voice filled with disappointment. What's this urgent gathering? Sveta asked her friends curiously. I want to consult with you girls, Zlata replied. Just please, don't laugh. It's serious to me. It's intriguing, Yana smiled. Tell us, we're all ears. Well, it's about Jean and his mother, Zlata began. Wow, Marina exclaimed. He introduced you to his mother? That's a significant step. Not exactly my parents, Zlata sighed. Just his mother. He doesn't have a father. Anyway, his mother is quite peculiar, but she seemed to like me. Well, as much as she can like anyone. That's a good sign, isn't it? Jana asked. Or is it? According to Jean, it's actually a positive thing. She doesn't usually take a liking to people easily, but that's not the main point. The thing is, she wants to see what kind of hostess I am, Zlata explained. Sveta lowered her head, thinking for a moment. No problem. Let me bake a cake, and I can prepare a meat dish. You can tell her you made it yourself, Sveta offered. Sveta worked as a cook in a restaurant, and her friends often sought her help when they needed to impress others with their culinary skills. That won't work, Zlata replied, shaking her head. I'm telling you, she's a clever woman. She doesn't just want a dinner. She wants us to live together for a whole week. She wants to see not only how I cook, but also if I can keep the apartment clean. And besides, what does Jean say about it? Marina asked, seeking clarification. He thinks it's a ridiculous idea, and that I shouldn't take it too seriously, Zlata answered. I would agree with Jean. Jana chimed in, the most adventurous of the three friends. Come on, it's just a week. You can handle it. She won't expect you to clean her whole apartment from top to bottom or cook every single meal. Maybe just a couple of dinners. Sveta can give you some interesting recipes. Show her your hospitality and she'll be won over. After that, there won't be any more doubts or constant nagging about ruining her son's life. That wouldn't be a bad approach, Zlata pondered. But the thing is, she wants both of us to move in with me. It's like stepping into my territory. Your mother-in-law is quite something, Sveta commented. So what are you planning to do? I'm leaning towards saying no, Marina added quickly. And I would still consider it, Jana said. I don't like these types of women, and I would want to put her in her place. I have to remind you, Zlata interjected. I am far from being the perfect hostess. I doubt I'll be able to pretend for a whole week." The girls fell into silence, pondering the situation. "The question is," Svetlana finally spoke up, "how much do you really like this guy? You said yourself that if his mother wants it, you won't be together." Zlata nodded in agreement. "That's true," she admitted. "Well, then it's either you live with her for a week and do everything right, or your relationship with Jean will end. It's your choice," Svetlana stated. Zlata bit her lip, deep in thought, while the girls eagerly awaited her decision. "What would you do if you were in my shoes?" she asked them. "I would definitely do it," Jana immediately responded. "And I would have a lot of fun with it. I'd play with a lady's expectations a bit. But that's just me," she shrugged. Svetlana also nodded in agreement. "I would do it too," she said, "but not for just any man. If it were my husband in Jean's place, I wouldn't have the slightest doubt." "And what about you?" Zlata turned to Marina. "I would refuse," Marina replied firmly. "It's a complicated situation. Why doesn't Jean solve the problem with his mother on his own?" "He's trying," Zlata sighed. "But he doesn't always succeed. He can't control her every moment of the day. She nearly ruined his first girlfriend's career. I don't want to be in that position." "Well, then you have two choices. Either accept her offer or break up with Jean," Jana summarized. "I'll take the offer," Zlata declared with determination. Zlata was busy cleaning the kitchen, with Jean beside her washing the dishes. "Are you sure about this?" Jean asked. "It seems unnecessary. You yourself said that if I don't meet your mother's requirements, she'll find a way to ruin our relationship," Zlata replied. "Zlata, that was years ago. We're not so naive anymore. We know what to expect. We'll be fine. You don't have to bring my mother to your apartment for that." "Jean, I've already made up my mind. Besides, it's only for a week." Jean placed the last plate in the drying rack and turned off the water. "If anything becomes too much, just let me know, and I'll take Mom home immediately," he assured her. "Okay," Zlata nodded. "But I must say I'm a bit hurt that you don't believe in my abilities. I believe I can handle it." "Zlata, it's not that I don't think you're capable. I just don't see why you should have to prove anything. Plus, my mother, she'll find a way to make our lives difficult." "Let's finish cleaning up, and then you can go get your mom while I prepare dinner." "Starting early means we can finish early," Zlata suggested. "Zlata, how about tomorrow?" Jean proposed. "I'll have to leave in the evening to show you the apartment." "No," Zlata declined. "You can't skip work for the entire week. The sooner you leave me alone with your mother, the easier it will be for you on other days. Come on, Jean, stop trying to talk me out of it." "All right," he agreed. "What else needs to be done? You're in charge. Should we clean the windows? Maybe consider hanging different curtains," Zlata pondered. "And these need to be washed." Jean shook his head. "Honey, let's not go overboard, please." "Okay, as you say. Then I think we're done. Go get your mother," Zlata concluded. Jean no longer disagreed with her. He packed up and left. A few hours later, he returned with his mother and several suitcases. Tasia Semyonovna immediately scrutinized the girls' two-room apartment. "You keep it quite clean," she remarked. "But I'm sure you were only cleaning up when I arrived. Let's see if you can keep it clean throughout the week." Zlata nodded. "Would you like to have dinner?" "It's too early for dinner," Tasia Semyonovna replied. "Let's unpack my things." Jean glanced at Zlata sympathetically. "Zlata, I have to go to the show," he explained. "Go ahead," she said. "When you come back, we'll have dinner ready." "Is that all right, Tasia Semyonovna?" Zlata's life underwent a drastic change. She now woke up an hour and a half earlier, preparing breakfast for the entire family. She managed to clean the kitchen and corridor floors. Jean tried to assist her when his mother wasn't around, but he proved to be more of a night owl and struggled with morning tasks. However, just when Zlata yearned for some rest, Jean seemed to be bursting with energy. Tasia Semyonovna behaved as if she were merely visiting. She would have breakfast in the morning, express gratitude, and then rise from the table. Not once did she attempt to clear the dishes or offer any assistance to Zlata. During the day, while Jean and Zlata were at work, she would often venture out to meet her friends. In the evening, she would return for dinner. Rarely did she offer feedback on Zlata's actions, which left the girl uncertain about whether she was doing things right or not. She lacked the courage to ask Tasia Semyonovna for guidance. By the end of the week, Zlata felt utterly exhausted. On Sunday morning, she decided to reach out to Sveta. Sveta, today marks the end of the week. She'll be departing tomorrow. I want to prepare something special for dinner, Zlata said. Are you doing all right? Sveta asked. It's actually quite enjoyable living with Jean, Zlata replied. He's been a great help, and overall, things have been easy. But with his mom, she doesn't seem to cause trouble, but still, I feel out of place, exhausted. I'm really relieved that she'll be leaving. Where are you right now? Speaking so openly, Sveta inquired. I'm out shopping, Zlata replied. By the way, I've been wondering who buys the groceries. Sveta continued. Usually me. Jean can also do it if asked, but he needs a specific list. He doesn't know what I plan to cook, Zlata explained. That's not what I meant. You're essentially feeding 2 extra people for a week, providing them with all sorts of things. That costs money. Quite a lot of money, Sveta expressed her concern. You're right, Zlata smiled. Well, most of the time, I pay for it myself. Jean offered me money, but I declined. Oh, Zlata, listen, next week I'll be moving in. I'll be renting out my apartment. I've already started searching for tenants. That will bring in money, much more than what I've spent this week, Zlata reassured her. All right, I'll send you some simple recipes. Buy some fish, herbs like dill and parsley, tomatoes, cheese, and celery. I'll send you the rest. Hang in there, Sveta said. Thank you, Sedek. In the evening, Zlata, with Jean's assistance, set the table and invited everyone to dinner. It looks lovely, Tasia Semyonovna remarked. I can see that you're eager for me to leave. No, of course not, Zlata replied, feeling hurt. You are a cherished guest to me. In that case, you should be pleased with my news, Tasia Semyonovna stated. What's the news, Mom? Jean inquired. I believe, his mother responded, that we should stay here for another week, because 1 week is not enough for anyone, and now I think Zlata will be ready to show her true self. Zlata was stunned, unable to utter a word in her state of shock. Mom, please stop, Jean exclaimed. If, for some reason, you don't want to stay at home, then stay with me. Why make Zlata work for you? Can't you see what's happening? You don't help her. You're always demanding something from her. She's exhausted, overwhelmed. Stop scrutinizing her. Son, Tasia Semyonovna sighed, you don't understand. I'm a mother, experienced in life. I've witnessed it all before. I don't believe you're irreplaceable. I'm not trying to find the perfect bride for you. I simply know you well, better than anyone else. I know the kind of woman with whom you can build a fulfilling life, and the type with whom you're more likely to end up divorcing. Your father was a remarkable man, and you grew up in a complete family. You have fond memories of your childhood. Am I not right? Well, yes, you are, Jean nodded, but I'm not entirely sure what you mean. I mean that I want the same life for my grandchildren. I don't want them to experience having an absent father on Sundays, Tasia Semyonovna explained. Zlata is a good girl. She's calm. But honey, let's be honest, you enjoy being taken care of. You appreciate comfort. Right now, you're willing to help a girl, but will you always be ready for that? I know how quickly you can grow tired of a relationship if there's no clean apartment and a cooked dinner waiting for you in the evening. However, Zlata, my son will be able to provide for the family, and you won't have to worry about that. Mom, that's quite a story, Jean replied. But I'm a grown man. I can determine who is right for me and who isn't. Don't you realize you're humiliating me? Jean, wait, Zlata suddenly interjected, feeling the weight of Tasia Semyonovna's words. What's wrong with it? She's a mother who cares about her son. It's only natural that she wants the best for him. Besides, it's not so difficult to show her the real me, especially if Jin's mother already likes me. Let's stay. What do you mean, stay? Jin was taken aback. Are you out of your mind? No, I'm serious. Stay for another week. Tasia Semyonovna has the right to be sure. She loves you and worries about you, Zlata insisted. Jin shook his head. I think you're both crazy. Zlata regretted her decision as Monday arrived. Jin immediately informed her that he would be working until 10 p.m. and not to wait for him for dinner. Unexpectedly, Zlata also had to stay at work, and she didn't return home until around 8 p.m. And how do you explain this? Tasia Semyonovna questioned as soon as she opened the door. Fine, I'm the only one at home today. But what if Jin had arrived on time? Tasia Semyonovna, Zlata sighed wearily. But he didn't, and I had an unforeseen circumstance. I rarely stay late at work. Don't you think Jin would understand that? Honey, I'm not saying you have to wait for your husband with the table set, Tasia Semyonovna replied. But let's take a look in the refrigerator. It's empty. Why don't you prepare some food for tomorrow? If Jin comes while you're gone, at least he'll have something to eat. Don't be angry with me. It's just common sense. Zlata let out another sigh. I understand, Tasia Semyonovna. I'll take care of it, and she trudged dejectedly to the kitchen. The rest of the week fared no better than Monday. Jin observed Zlata closely, seemingly waiting for her to give up and admit defeat. But Zlata gritted her teeth and remained silent. As the weekend approached, she prayed for the week to end quickly. On Saturday morning, Jin informed Zlata that he would be taking his mother to a friend's house and would return afterward. I'm going away too, the girl replied. I promised to help my friend pack her things. Zlata had agreed to assist Marinka in moving from one rented apartment to another. Marinka had asked her on Wednesday, and Zlata was the first to offer her help because she simply wanted to escape from her own home. Is it really that bad? Jana asked. Not really, Zlata nodded. But she's coming home late today, and hopefully tomorrow she'll start packing her things. Are you going to throw a farewell party? Sveta grinned. Definitely not, Zlata said. I've had enough of that last week. Let her pack her things and leave. What if she wants to stay another week? Marina wryly grinned. No, I definitely can't handle that. I'm not even sure I need Jin anymore if he's such a pushover. The first week he tried to help me, and now he's almost like his mother. Maybe he wants to teach you a lesson, Jana suggested. He did tell you not to invite his mother, that it would be difficult for you. I thought if you didn't understand it in the first week, he would make the situation harder for you. Zlata shook her head. I don't even understand it myself, she said. I don't know who's doing what. One thing I can say for sure, inviting that woman to the apartment was a mistake. Well, Sveta shrugged. Look for the positives. They didn't steal or harm you. And you've realized in just 2 weeks that you don't really need this man. You haven't wasted years on him. Well, if you look at it that way, okay, Zlata sighed. Let's bring the stuff downstairs. She walked outside with Marina's suitcase and wearily placed it on the ground, taking a deep, relieving breath of the warm summer air. The girls followed suit, panting from the effort. Zlata looked around and suddenly saw Jin and his mother emerging from the adjacent doorway. Zlata took a step back, attempting to conceal herself behind her friends. You what? Jana was surprised. Just stay put, whispered Zlata. It's Jin and his mother. I don't want them to notice me. Why not? Sveta sneered. Are you that tired of them? No, Zlata answered. They're supposed to be out of town today. Jin took my mother to a friend's cottage. But I don't see any vacation homes or friends here. What are they doing? Zlata wondered. They're stopping and talking, Marina replied. All right, Jana determinedly waved her hand. That's enough. First of all, we shouldn't be staring at them. They might notice, Secondly, we won't figure it out just by watching. You, she ordered Zlata, go towards the entrance. You won't be seen behind the trees that way. And you, she looked at her friends, take your time carrying your bags to the car. Move slowly, stack them, and act natural. As for me, I'll go and find out. Yana, what are you going to say? Zlata asked. Well, obviously not that you're my friend, and I decided to follow them. Relax, I'll come up with something. Maybe that our car broke down, or that we got lost. Jana left, and Zlata could only wait patiently. Jana entered the building almost immediately. After a few minutes, Sveta told Zlata, now they've gone inside as well. Why? Zlata was surprised. Sveta looked at her friend in disbelief. Are you completely out of your mind? How should I know why they went there? Just wait. When Jana comes back, she'll tell us everything. Zlata let out a sigh. I should have gone and talked to them directly. And what would you have said? Marina shook her head. They would have come up with another story, and you would have believed it. Just as the girls finished loading the last bag into the car, Jana returned. Let's go upstairs, she called out. I've seen quite a lot of interesting things. I'll fill you in on all the details. Can we watch a little longer? Zlata asked. No, Jana replied. I already know everything I need to know. Zlata couldn't wait to find out what her friend had discovered. She eagerly asked, so what's happening over there? Well, at first, I loitered around the entrance, Jana began, but it was clear that I was attracting too much attention, so I moved to the driveway. I cursed myself for not talking to them earlier, thinking I wouldn't find out anything. All I could observe was that they were engaged in a heated discussion with a man on the street. It seemed like they were arguing about money. I was about to leave when I noticed them entering the stairwell from a window between the floors. Fortunately, I managed to catch a glimpse of the apartment they went into. After waiting a few minutes, I went down to that floor and rang their apartment bell. I pretended that I was looking for my cousin, claiming that I had come to visit her from Novosibirsk after years of being apart. What an imagination you have, Sveta smirked. So, did they open the door for you? Yes, they did, Jana confirmed. The door was unlocked. There's some ongoing renovation in the apartment. It appears they started quite a while ago, but they haven't been able to complete it. It seems like if someone was previously working on it, they're now doing it themselves. But why? And Zlata shook her head. I don't understand any of this. Zlata, you're not stupid. Come on, use your head. Take off the rose-colored glasses, Jana urged. Do you think Jean and his mother have nowhere to live while they're doing the renovations? Zlata asked. I don't think so, Jana replied. I think it's quite clear. They find naive people in love and stay with them for a week or two. We can easily confirm this. How? Zlata inquired. Well, if today your boyfriend's mother insists on staying for another week, then it's clear. I'm definitely right, Jana explained. Zlata wrapped her arms around herself, feeling a mix of confusion and disappointment. I don't know what to say, she admitted. I hate feeling so foolish, but everything points to you being right. I've always believed in the idea of finding perfect people. What should I do, girls? I think, Sveta grinned, if John is right, you can't just leave it at that. The other girls nodded in agreement. But what could be done? I still don't understand, Zlata wondered. Yes, Marina chimed in. Zlata went ahead and prepared dinner as planned. She managed to set the table, using the beautiful dishes and placing a tablecloth. A vase filled with fresh flowers adorned the center, adding a touch of elegance. Zlata even bought a bottle of wine, ensuring everything was ready by the time Jean and his mother returned home. Wow, Tasia Semyonovna exclaimed in admiration. You've gone through so much trouble for us. Zlata nodded, a warm smile on her face. Over these 2 weeks, we've become almost like family. I feel so close to you both. Zlatachka, that's wonderful. Let's not waste any time and sit down at the table. I'm famished, Tasia Semyonovna said. You know, Jean and I have been working in the garden, helping our friend all day. All she offered was a cup of tea, didn't even feed us. Zlata shook her head disapprovingly. Some people can be like that, she said sadly. Please, take a seat. I've baked a pie. Zlata knew that she had heavily salted the pie. As she served large slices to Jean and his mother, she only took a small portion of salad for herself. I'm watching my weight, she explained. I want Jean to find me attractive. That's right, Tasia Semyonovna agreed, taking a big bite of the salty pie. Zlata couldn't contain her laughter as she watched her guests silently chew on the unexpectedly salty pie. Is it delicious? She couldn't help but ask. Yes, Jean replied. It's absolutely delicious, one of your best pies. You know what? Let's have a drink, he suggested. Of course, Zlata nodded. Pour it. Zlata, Tasia Semyonovna finally spoke up, her tone becoming more sincere. You were right when you said that we've become very close. I'm going to miss you so much. Yeah, I'll miss you too. Zlatachka, baby, but you salted the pie a little too much. Maybe I'll stay another week. I'll teach you how to make it so Jean will love it. And I'm so glad, replied Zlata, that you suggested it. You see, my parents called today. Anyway, my sister and her 3 children are coming to stay with me for a week. And her husband, of course, can't be without him. He likes to drink and always yells at her, and you know how the kids can be. So I thought that maybe, I could move into an apartment with Jean. He mentioned that he lives somewhere very close to you. That way, we can see each other every day, she smiled happily. How will they come? Jean asked. Why? Zlata was surprised in turn. Can't my relatives come to visit me? No, I'm sorry. I actually wanted to ask. How will you leave when you have guests? We're not that close, Zlata replied. They just need a place to stay, not my constant company. They need to focus on attending to their middle child. Honestly, it's better if I'm not here, or else they'll make me babysit their other 2 kids. Shall we start packing? Jean, you don't mind, do you? The man appeared confused. Sorry, it's just what? Zlata asked. Don't you want to live with me? Your mother likes me, right, Tasia Semyonovna? You know, Zlata, your mother and I will pack our things and leave today. We won't make a mess here. Tomorrow, I'll come to help you pack, and we'll go back to my place. Really? Zlata asked. Where are you going? That apartment you showed me doesn't belong to you anymore. In fact, it never belonged to you at all. You just sold it. And I know you and Mom don't have a place to live either. So, you're packing up and leaving my apartment right now, and you'll have to reimburse me for everything I spent on groceries and utilities. We'll calculate it all, every last penny, and if not, I have a friend, Seda. Her husband works for the police. I think they would be very interested to know about the 2 fraudsters. Will pay, Jean answered. Mom, go get ready. The next day, Zlata invited her friends to her place. They sat at the table and enjoyed some tea. Girls, thank you, said Zlata. Without you, I would have endured it for much longer. I think they would have convinced me to stay for a 3rd week. I feel so foolish. Zlat, we're to blame too, remarked Svetka. Jana and I practically encouraged you to go along with this scam. And it's all because each of us desires to find true love. You found yours, Zlata said sadly. And you will too, Sveta smiled. You just have to be patient. In the meantime, try not to do anything too foolish. End.